Namaste. Welcome to another edition of NavaVimarsh podcast. So, as part of our book reading and author interviews, today we have with us Mr. Aabhas Maldahiyar, the author of his latest book, Hitler, the Proclaimed Messiah of the Palestinian Cause. So I had read through part of the book, full book I could not go through, but most of the book I have gone through. It's been a revelation, correct? And also I had checked Sir's others as well podcast as well to actually understand his perspective and why he wrote this book. So it was a very interesting journey reading this book, watching his podcast to do the research, like what kind of topics are covered here. So namaste, sir. Welcome to the podcast.
Namaste. It's a pleasure to be in your show.
Thank you, sir. It's really our privilege to have you with us because I have been reading your books. So it's a kind of a child's excitement to have the author come and talk to us and talk to our also audience as well. So without wasting any time, let's deep dive into the book itself. So this is a very interesting and niche topic. So I don't know whether anybody in India at least have written a book on Hitler. I think probably the first book, like a not academic work, but like a work available to the public as a document, is in published in English from India. So I just want to know the journey. Like you wrote about Babar, you wrote about few other things as well, but writing a book on Hitler, whom maybe there are movies and other things that are written. So why, from an Indian perspective, why you wrote this book and why it is important that we read this book?
Thanks for posing this question. And I must say that I had not thought at least 6 years ago that I will be doing such a book because my interests have always been the medieval history. Of course, every parts of history excites me. I like to dabble a bit around the ancient past of Bharat too. I like discussing about Aryan or Aryan invasion myth, etc. They are the part of my interest too. But it so is the nature of history that anything and everything uh, which has got some kind of controversy added to it, it tends to excite you. And I am a son of a historian, and I got this thing in, particularly if one has to say that I have seen my father speaking about history in my childhood. So history was always there with me. It was always, I knew that there is a stream called history. I knew the seriousness of it. I knew the gravity of it. It was not that I was not aware that it's a non-gravity subject, as in for many people who are studying science stream, for them history is always like a very easygoing subject. That's what their perspective is. But I knew the intensity of it, and it was around 6 years ago, 5.5 years ago, when Imran Khan did make a post on Twitter. Back then it was Twitter. Now it's known as X. And he shared an article, and that was about connection of Hindutva slash RSS slash Hindu Mahasabha slash directly targeting the Indian government, which is BJP, which is connected with the RSS as something inspired by the Nazi ideology. And I am somebody who is a skeptic. I don't take anything on face value, irrespective of ideology I subscribe to. This looked like a curious thing to me, and I took up the subject, as in I began to read about it. First, it began with the op-eds, the normal articles, etc. And once those articles were there, I began to get to know about more of the sources. But what is very interesting is I could not find much connection between Hindutva and Nazism. They are poles apart. And yes, there are leaders who went and met the fascist leader. It's no denial to it. There are some text written also which talks about that Germany has done something great, and all those comes in the passing. Now, point is, how much practical execution of those ideas have been Hindutva paradigm, and have the Hindutva ideologues really subscribed to those ideas, or they consider that those were the words spoken in the passing, or they just appeared in certain booklets, but they never Hindutva ideologues never agreed to it. Ironically, it is Vinayak Damodar Savarkar, or V Savarkar as we like to call him, the founding father of the modern Hindutva, if I have to put it this way. He's somebody who is the first Indian politician to recognize the need for a Jewish homeland. He's the first Indian politician. And India fully recognized Israel as a state only in 1991. Of course, there was an informal one in 1950s, but very formal one happened only in 1991. So, despite the having leaders of different colors, different political parties, largely it was Congress for sure, but we never recognized Israel. But this was the man, the founding father of the modern Hindutva, who recognized the Jewish homeland. He subscribed to the idea of Zionism, if I have to put it this way. And so it is very ironical if someone wants to make that connect. But that was done and dusted. But at the same time, the documents which came to my eyes were a revelation to me. What I saw is that there was a strong connection between Nazism, fascism, and the Islamism. And the Arab world was deeply and madly in love with Hitler. And that is something which I thought that needs to be brought in eyes of the people. There were some works in the West, not so elaborate as I have done, as in with so much details. But there were some works. In India, definitely we don't have any work which speaks about it. It looks like a for many people, it can be a figment of imagination that Hitler was cozying up with the Islamists and he was changing the main camp based on what the Muslims want. So this is may look like a the fiction tale to them, but this is what it was. And I thought that this book needs to be written. And 4.5 years back, or 5 years back, I began this journey, and I went through the archives, as in the archives of Berlin, archives of some archives of Israel, some archives of the UK, the France, and I whatever I have written in this book, they are entirely based on the archival sources. There are more than 1,000 archival documents which I unearthed, and they became the guiding factors for my book. And each and every word which is written in the book is based on certain archive source. So that's how this book happened. I don't know which kind of crowd it will attract, but one thing is for sure that this book really is a reckoning. It's a document which needs to be gone read through, because still the while the West is looking to recognize Palestine overwhelmingly right now, say it is France or say it's Britain, the problem lies that if you say free Palestine, you are indirectly saying Hail Hitler, or you are just subscribing to the idea of Nazism. It may look very problematic to a lot of Indians, what I'm stating, but I'm saying this after having gone through those archives. I know that what Palestine means. I really know that what kind of menace it is. And Israel is doing a favor to the world by picking the war against the Hamas, Palestine, if you put it this way. And so this was the intent of the book, and journey was more or less like passing through the archives and nothing more than that. It was exciting for sure, and the result has been it's like a 550-page main text, and we have got a archival, as in the bibliography is around 350 pages, which can be accessed online. We could not put it in the book because the book was already very thick. It would have been uh, I, it would have been a 900 page book. We didn't want to do it so that the cost of the book can also be lesser and it can be easily accessible.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you mention this word, correct? That if you are supporting Palestine, you are hindsight supporting Hitler and his policies. So that is a statement which I don't think anybody has ever made anywhere else in this world even. So, to the next question or the topic, because I have read through the book, at least the first half of the book. So, you mention a specific chapter where you mentioned the Grand Mufti meeting Hitler. Okay. So, like, if I want to play a devil's advocate, if somebody meets somebody, does it mean that they support that ideology or his heinous acts? So, just to actually quote him and tell him, okay, is meeting something which is very important, that they become, by meeting they become that person, or is there a more that we need to discuss, more we need to read through this book?
Well, you have put a right question because when I am speaking about this book, often people are bringing Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose into the picture. And the when you put the famous picture of Grand Mufti meeting Hitler, they will put the famous picture of Netaji meeting the Nazi leaders and Hitler. So meeting somebody does not make someone subscribe to that idea, and this is what I even clarified initially when I was talking about the Hindutva leaders. We have seen the meetings happening, we have seen people writing about it, but still I uh, hold the water when I say that there was no connection between two of them. My words hold water. It's not something that it's a fringe words. So it means that I am not somebody who will go just by looking at a picture that okay, Grand Mufti met Hitler, that means he became like a Hitler. And a skeptic like me likes to go into the documents, like to understand the details that what exactly happened. Now, 10 years ago, Netanyahu, as in the Prime Minister of Israel, had made a comment before going to Germany. He was going to go on a German trip. Before that, he made a statement, and that statement was that Hitler did not want to kill the Jews. He just wanted to throw them away from Germany. But it was uh, a Palestinian leader, the Grand Mufti, who ensured that the Holocaust happens. Now, he had to take back that statement within 24 hours because Germany said that, oh, don't say it, we take up the responsibility. There are some very strong scholars who have seen the trial of the Nazis. They came up and said that, no, no, this cannot be true. He cannot be authority on the Holocaust. The Jews also went against Netanyahu that what the hell you are saying? This is wrong. This is untrue. Now, the problem is, see, all the Nazis were tried for the as a war criminal. These Palestinian leaders were never tried as a criminals. What it did, it created a situation that today you still see Yasser Arafat and some noble person. You see Palestine fighting a battle of freedom. The menace exists today because back in the past, that is 75 years ago, they were not tried as a the war criminal. And now these are the two broad statements which I made. They were not tried as a war criminal, and the second broad statement which I made is that I don't agree that if somebody has met, it means that they have subscribed to those ideas. Now I will get into detail of it. In that very meeting which happened between Grand Mufti and Hitler, not much happened. As in, Hitler just gave assurance that we will support you in your freedom movement. We'll do what we can do, maximum. And those minutes of meeting, I have put in my book as well in the appendix, where the two version. One is the Grand Mufti's own version. One is the version which was recorded in the German office, but more or less two are same what they are trying to say. Grand Mufti demanded, and he's certainly in awe of Hitler. He is taken aback by Charishma and whatnot. He's saying all good things about Hitler and says that Hitler has agreed to support his cause. Now, the the people put this MOM, as in minutes of meeting, which is available everywhere, as a proof to say that Grand Mufti never spoke with Hitler about Holocaust. Okay, so now of course you will not find it. If somebody has to plan a Holocaust or things like that of such a intense level, they are not going to talk it straight to the head of a state or say head of the government. It does not happen like that. It's not like deciding that what we are going to eat for the dinner. It does not happen like that. It needs a lot of back planning. Now I'll give you an instance. In 1944, the three times when Grand Mufti urges the Lufthansa, as in the Air Force of the Nazis, to bomb Tel Aviv 3 times. German forces denies 3 times that we are not going to do it because logistical reasons don't permit us to do it. What does this show you? This shows you that while German forces were quite pragmatic, that this is not the right time to attack, this is not the right time to bomb Tel Aviv. But Grand Mufti is mad in the quest to kill the Jews. He's more mad than the Nazis. So it first you get a reason that why it can always be believed that Grand Mufti was way more fanatic than the Nazis when it came to how to treat uh, the 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 Jews. Now, when the initially there was an agreement. There's a very famous agreement called Havara Agreement, which had happened, and it was agreed that the Jews will be let to go to Palestine from Germany, because the initial plan definitely was to throw away the Jews. The final solution again is a very old word. It comes from theology. It carries forward in the Tsarist Russia in the era of the Tsar. It continues final solution word, but no one talks about that what that final solution is. Final solution has always been there. Neither it was started by Hitler, nor it was started by Grand Mufti. It is there in the Islamic text. It's there in the Christian text also to some extent. It has been there in the talk among the people that we have to do the final solution. Now, now Grand Mufti is somebody who is very pissed off that the Palestinians, the Jews are being brought into the Palestine. He urges European countries to not send the Jews into Palestine. Instead, he redirects them into the Poland where the concentration camps exist. Isn't it a act of war crime? He literally pushed the people to go to the Poland because there the concentration camps exist where he knows, and he accepts it's an own autobiography that he knew about the final solution. There are the affidavits which have come out which say that he was very close with Eichmann and Himmler, and he was one person behind the Holocaust for sure. He was also a brain behind it. So, given the circumstances that he never wanted the Jews to come to the Palestine, so the Germans were okay that even if the Jews can go away from Germany, they are okay with it. It's not. I'm not trying to say that Germans had no interest whatsoever to annihilate the Jews. Later on, they also wanted to do it, but it cannot be said that the Grand Mufti was not hands and gloves with them. There are very strong evidences to say it out, and they both serve the same purpose. One was, and that purpose was the annihilation of the Jews, because of course Grand Mufti is taking it from the theology, and for Hitler and his people, as in the Nazis, it's about the Aryan supremacy which they talk about. Of course, this we are not going to discuss Aryan and etc. today, but this is about that race, the race notion, racial notion. Both want the Jews to get away, and they both are on same page completely. So, and Netaji never went ahead and said that we are going to agree to your racial policies. In fact, Netaji called out Hitler. Look at the audacity of this man that 6 years before he met Hitler, he had called out his policy, the racial policy. Still, he goes on, walks, talks with the chin up. He never bends. And that was Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Those people are absolute idiots who try to compare Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose with somebody like Grand Mufti, the bigoted person who all he dreamed was to kill the Jews. And at the same time, he repeats in Palestine that we need to do exactly what Germans are doing. So he knows that what Germans are doing. He was well aware of it. But they were, as in these Palestinian leaders were never tried as a war criminals. And there are many other things which you can talk in the future of the discussion which comes up, that how Hitler was seen in the Arab world, and how Hitler saw the Islamic world, etc. That will set the things even more clearer.
Yes. So now to that what you have mentioned, just want to understand from a general perspective, correct? The Jewish people have been very successful to actually like show, like put it out there, their atrocities done to them, and it is well documented. So, what do you think? What happened that the role played by the Arabs in actually egging Hitler to actually go and persecute Jews, that was not certainly documented or popularized as much as the Germans were being blamed and they have done a bad thing. So what happened really? That is what a like conscious decision because they have to live in Arab, surrounded by Arab neighbors that they did not put it out there in terms of documentation, movies, articles. What was
So
the psychology that it was not there?
I don't think it was a fault of the Jews. What really happened is the global consensus about it, because this the syndrome of Muslim appeasement is something what creates whole lot of problem. Because right now Netanyahu was called out for saying that it was a Grand Mufti who was the man behind it, because it was a case of it's simple, it's Muslim and non-Muslim world. That's where the things comes as had Grand Mufti been somebody else, had he been Christian, had he been say Hindu or whatever, so it wouldn't have been a problem. Hindu to anyways is the punching bag for all. So, but had he been a Christian also per se, there wouldn't have been a problem because is the France which gave first gave the asylum to the Grand Mufti. Later on, he goes to Egypt and then Lebanon in the Beirut is where he finally dies, and he was living till 1973, 1974. So till very recent time, I'm talking about the Grand Mufti. It means that after having done all these things for 30 years, he was living peacefully, and it said that he was in exile, whatever. But he was living a very happy life there. We don't see that anything ever happened to him. So the France opened the doors to him, and the same France, which were the Frenchmen were called the people who were the followers of the Dox religion by the people who were pro-Palestine in 1944. On the streets, these were the slogans. Now, it's not that France was not aware of it. France was very well aware that the menace what they are dealing with. Like for example, George W. Bush was very well aware that the menace he's dealing with when 9/11 instance had happened and they took up the battle. But that's where exactly the term called Islamophobia comes into the picture after the 9/11. Interestingly, where the Mrs. Bush walks into some group of the Muslims and she wears the some kind of a thing on the head, a scarf, etc. And she tries to appease the Muslims, and it happened. So somehow this whether it's a right wing Western world or a left wing Western world, they have always been bending to the Muslim narrative, and they get bite by it very easily. And this problem has been lying in the Western world. If France could open the door to the Grand Mufti exactly after 4 5 years after he led to the people to say that the Frenchmen are the followers of the Dox religion, you can expect that what kind of psychology and the mentality West does live with. Because now I'm picking on the France because France has a policy where it's absolute secularism. If you want to look at the definition of absolute secularism, any country which follows it, it's definitely the France. There's no other country which has proper execution of secularism. They are the one who are able to do it. Now they come in support of somebody who are highly sectarian, as in they believe in Sharia law. You open the Hamas charter, you will see that Hamas charter is all about stating that Palestine is a Waqf land and it will remain the Waqf till the judgment day. So whatsoever it may happen, it's coming from the theology. So France is today looking to recognize a state which lives by the theology, the Sharia law, which is part of the founding principles. If you see a foundation in Palestine per se, then it's a part of their founding principle, and that's where. So we have been seeing it day in day out. It was the Khomeini got the support in the the Iranian Revolution from the Western world. It was the French who were again the biggest supporters of those the Islamists. And later on, a lot of communists went on to record to say that it was a big blunder which happened. We could not know that who this person is, and that's how the Iranian Revolution happened. In fact, Al Qaeda was also partially created by USA, if you ask me, because they were just trying to create the forces against the USSR, because the USSR was fighting with the Afghans, and that's where they gave the arms and support and everything. But later on, it became the menace to themselves. USA is cozying around Pakistan. So the Western world somehow does not understand that how a psychology of Islamists works. They use them, throw them. They use them, they throw them. It's a vicious circle. It goes on and on. And perhaps that is the reason why we could never talk about the role of the Palestinian leaders. And had we spoken about it, it would have been nipping in the butt and it would have gone away entirely. Today, we wouldn't have been seeing this Israel-Palestine war. It wouldn't have existed because the day they would have faced a trial, no one would have dared to do what they are doing it today. October 7th wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we have a lot of good questions, so we'll take them, but we'll take another 10, 15 minutes to actually summarize the book for the audience because so what they're going to read. So my next question is regarding Hitler's intentions. So there's a chapter in the book on the Hitler's intention and how Nazi policy was affected and egged by the Muslim politics itself to actually do more harm than what they intend to do. So was Hitler really like as what we say like a sympathetic to the Muslim cause, or like he really believed, or that like okay it's a advantage. Okay, I hate Jews, they also hate Jews. Let's put together. Whether he was really like feeling okay, Palestinians need a homeland just because of their plight, or it was a political convenience that he used to actually persecute Jews.
So see, uh, one thing is there for sure that Hitler already had that angst against the Jews before he got in touch with the Islamists. It's not that it was created by the Islamists in the heart of the Hitler. It was a very old thing which Hitler inherited because this racial policies of Germany was very much there, of the Europe rather was very much there. British were no different too. They were also hardcore racists. They did worse to the Indians, and they already had the policy, as in the Germans, the Nazis. But with the arrival of the allies like Hajj Amin al Husseini, say the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, and others who were very popular back then, he saw that there's a creed which does the battle what the Germans are supposed to do. Because for him, Islam was like a man in a religion. Man in a religion, it means that the religion of the men. So men, as in the men, the soldiers are the men. They are the people who, and he always believed in this idea of the crazy masculinity, which was a very much existed. I think that this is a in a common parlance back then in all the civilizations, and the soldiers generally were the men, which is very much true even now. So it's Islam looked like a religion of the soldiers, and why he spoke about the man religion, a religion of men, because one is that he saw a rigorous purity in the religion, and then everything is so concretized, right? Now, before I talk about it, I had heard in a podcast long back, perhaps it was a podcast between Christopher Hitchens and I don't recall which home. There a term came that if a religion looks to control everything in your life, it means that it's totalitarian because it has total control what you will eat, what you will wear, whom you will marry, everything. It means that it's a totalitarian regime. So Hitler saw Islam as a religion which is so pure, it gives a solution to entire aspects of your life, and that is what totalitarianism is about. And that fascinated him a lot. because here he what he saw is that in Islam the soldiers are rewarded with the horse. They are uh, rewarded by the rivers of flowing wine, and then it's way beyond the earthly paradise. As in, what you think about in the earth, this way beyond it. But what Christianity does is that Christianity makes you weak. So that is why he saw Christianity as something which is a Jewish conspiracy. Christianity is not exactly as how it is today, as in back then. So for him, it was a Jewish conspiracy which made Christianity look like a weak. It is not something which it should have happened. In fact, he was so keen to see that the martial spirit and the strict moral code of the Islam can be mirrored in the general life. And this is something which somebody is a very close aide of Hitler, Albert Speer, who was an architect and very close to Hitler. He's writing all these things that what he's observing. He used to discuss religion a lot with Speer. And of course, there's other book called Hitler's Table Book where there's a whole record of Hitler's discussions around the religion. And so, because in Islam he saw amazing masculine power, something which can lead the world, control the world. So it looked like a disciplined faith system to him, and the Christianity was making the people weak, so it looked like a religion to go for. And in fact, he was quite upset that Islam could not conquer the Europe. Had Islam conquered the Europe, the German world would have been much more different, and the temperament would have been much more different, and the Jewish problem would have been dealt long back. So he had this kind of fascination for sure after he looked at Islam closely, and he the once the battle of World War began to spread in the Middle Eastern world, he got entirely convinced that he has got a perfect ally against the British. He has got a perfect ally against the Jews, and that's the way forward.
Understood. So we have two more questions specifically. Then we will take some audience questions. I think audience questions are going to echo the book's content as well. Some of them. So currently, let's say 1970s, 1970s when Arab League came in, and then the politics changed within the Arab world. So in like current perspective, how Hitler is viewed, and since 70s onwards, how Hitler was actually utilized in terms of anti-Jewish propaganda, because we know that the Iranians and other countries have actually said the Holocaust never happened. So this Holocaust denial, okay, as a part of a political tool or a tool of propaganda by the Arab nations, how it plays out with what you have written, that okay, Nazis and the Muslim nation, Muslim people were actually allies in terms of creating a propaganda where they aligned with each other. So how Hitler is viewed currently, maybe 10, 20 years in the Arab world, from your perspective with the book in mind.
So uh, forget the Arab world. If we just go to Pakistan, which is our close neighbor, so there Hitler is admired a lot, and it's still very recent. And I know that a lot of people were shocked when Aditya Raj Kaul put a video, and this is what they think about Hitler. And I was not shocked because I know that there was a connection between Muslim League, which I have not brought in this book, but Muslim League leaders were also very fascinated with the Palestinian cause because it was anti-Jewish. Alana Iqbal was a big fan of Hitler, which people are unaware of. So Jinnah also spoke a lot about Hitler, and in fact, there was a delegation from Muslim League which had gone to Germany as well. But isn't it very interesting? Everyone will talk about Hindutva leaders doing this and that. Practically, they do nothing. What the Germans did, nothing, absolutely nothing, which they could do. But or rather, they shouldn't have done as well. They have been always been very noble soul, the Hindutva leaders. But when it comes to the Muslim League, you see that they exactly did the same thing what the Germans did with the Jews. The human rights of Hindus, Sikhs, and everybody is trampled so badly. As in, it does not exist. What's forget about being trampled? It does not exist at all. Uh, there is no idea of being Hindu in Pakistan, right? And so, as far as Arab worlds are concerned, before that, let's look at Turkey. Turkey is a country where the maximum number of main camps sold. It really sold like a fire, and it is something which and see, there's two things. India is a land where people tend to pick the controversial book. So in India also we have got the sale of main camp. You might find the book of main camp lying somewhere in many houses too. It is quite possible, because Hitler is one character which a villain often fascinates. It fascinates people. And people want to know that what exactly he said, what exactly his views were. The most evil man of this current era. So, but in India, no one tries to replicate the path shown by Hitler. In the contrast, in um, Turkey, it's Hitler is quite a popular leader, as in people consider him like a messiah almost. In the Arab world, till very recent time, Hitler was seen as somebody very pious. Till very recent time, of course, recently the policies have changed because they have got bit close to United States of America, and such is the nature of geopolitics that they change their stance. And so, whether you talk about Lebanon, he was very much appreciated. In Egypt, also, till very recent time, Hitler was seen as a role model. And that's the reason why you see a lot of dictatorial leaders which sprung up in these areas. Now, pick an example for a while. Say Saddam. I don't have anything against Saddam Hussein. I don't see him as enemy of India whatsoever. He was not enemy, and in fact, it all happened. The worst what happened to him, that was very bad. But later on, the people who were in his party, the Baath party, that it is supposed to be a highly secular party, they became the founding members of the ISIS. So now ISIS, the role model on which ISIS works, or the role model on which Al Qaeda got formed, it was entirely dependent on the Muslim Brotherhood. And the Muslim Brotherhood policy was entirely taken from the Nazi policies, whether how they wear the dress or how they march, how they make the rules, regulation, everything was very much inspired by the Nazis. And in fact, Al Banna had got it translated into Arabic as well, the main camp, and he had distributed it, the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood. So you will find a lot of quotes. So right now, I was observing that recently the Wikipedia page of there's a Wikipedia page for the views about Nazism where all the words of these leaders, those lines have been erased. I can see that edits being made in the Wikipedia in last 2 3 years. Uh, but so me people may not find those verses right now, or the text which I have captured in my book uh, for their consumption. They can see that what the Muslim Brotherhood leaders were talking about them. And later on, a lot of ideas, like in India also, if you see today that there is a common thing that the Jews control the world. The banks are controlled by world Jews. So, in fact, we have also sold to this idea that everything happened because of them. We go behind the Rothschild and everything is there. But even I believed it till 3 years back or so. But the moment I began to dig in it, there is no substance. There is no substance to it. It is the same conspiracy theory, which is there's a text called the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. So this was something which appeared in 1903, which was created by the Russians, the Tsarist Russians. It was very anti-Semitic text, and it was said that these are the words of the Zion, as in the Jews themselves. But what exactly it was something which is told to be like a verse from a plagiarism. So it was a forgery which happened. There is a text called Dialogue Ox infers entre Machiavel et Montesquieu. It is a dialogue in hell between Machiavelli and Montesquieu. There is a play, okay, and the other play is a political satire by Maurice Joly. So these were brought together where they are criticizing the bankers, etc., and all the evils were replaced by Jews, and that is the inspiration. That's how this takes happened, and eventually you won't believe this is happening in the late 19th century, and by 1903 this book has been published. In 1921, this forgery was caught by the Times. They did the whole check. They put the text on one side and compare the two texts. Like for example, I'll just give you one example. Okay, this is a dialogue in hell between Machiavelli and Montesquieu. So it says, how are loans made? By issue of bonds entailing on the government the obligation to pay interest proportionate to capital it has been paid. Thus, if a loan is at 5%, the state after 20 years has paid out a sum equal to borrowed capital. When 40 years have expired, it has paid about double. After 60 years triple, yet it remains debtor for the entire capital sum. This appears in page number 209 in the Montesquieu dialogue. Now I'm picking the text from the Protocols of Elder of Zion. A loan is an issue of a government paper which entails an obligation to pay interest amounting to a percentage of a total sum of borrowed money. If a loan is at 5%, then in 20 years the government would have unnecessarily paid out sum equal to that of a loan in order to cover the percentage. In 40 years it will have paid twice, and in 60 thrice, but the loan still remain the same unpaid debt. Now this is coming in the protocol page number 77. So likewise, so what they do, I will give you one more example which will make it further clear. In the Machiavellian dialogues, it comes as like the god Vishnu, my press will have 100 arms, and these arms will give their hands to all the different shades of opinion throughout the country. Now, in the protocols, has come these newspapers, like the Indian god Vishnu, will be possessed of hundreds of hands, each of which will be feeling the pulse of. Now, this is exact plagiarism. And unfortunately, there are the handles on X which who will put this out, and somehow you know how Elon Musk claims that he has made his site completely anti-Semitic. It's anti-Semitic only to the extent that he can shout that I will not let swastika appear on my thing. There is the anti-Semitic text or anti-Jewish text are very much prevalent. They will be more. The algorithm pushes them more than your pro-Jew words, etc. This very much exists. So that protocol was applied by the Arab world. That protocol text was used by the Hitler to spread the propaganda that the Jews are behind all the destruction which happens in the world. And somehow Indians are also victim to it. And I'm very sorry when I see Indian doing it, because we are known for our intelligence and we have fallen prey to a bad plagiarism which was caught in 1921 already.
Yes. So I think our audience are also a bit surprised that Lord Vishnu was plagiarized by a lot of bad people. So yeah, the last question to you before we go to audience questions. The audience questions are quite interesting and like they will add a value to our conversation. So when we are talking about correct your journey being a Marxist, so that's a very interesting topic which a lot of people might not be familiar with. A lot of people know about it, correct? In terms of your upbringing as a Marxist and your journey towards, I would say, nationalism rather than be right wing. Okay. So, and there is a very interesting factor. Propaganda is something which is the bread and butter of all left leaning ideologies. Okay. So, like, do you think that this ability to do propaganda at a systematic level, at a mass level, by brainwashing people, is something which is akin, like similar to Nazism, left wing, and Islamism? They have this one common core called propaganda, and they will be doing it shamelessly, like lying about it on your face. And is that something which actually doing harm to us, that we are open society, we accept things without doing a lot of checks, and that is something that we need to develop as not writing but nationalists, to actually be a bit more cautious about what we read, and do not be as open as we are, because we are fighting an enemy the Marxist Islamists or the Nazis, okay, the people who are actually going to do more harm than good if we have still become or be little bit cautious in terms of our openness.
Yes. So what's very interesting is that the only land where the dharma lives is Bharat, and I'm very unapologetic about it when I say. And rest where everything which happens is adharma. I have no qualms accepting it and saying it on record. I have said it many times. So by default, the policies which come from outside India, they are very much propaganda driven because it was always about, say, I'll just give you an example. So when uh, today people are speaking about the anti-Hindu sentiment which has erupted in United States of America. But if you look at the time of Swami Vivekanand, there was a lot of anti-Hindu activities happening in the United States of America, and it continued. It was just that it was for a pause for a while. It was a pause, and it was happening in the past. It is continuing, and it will continue to happen. Whether it's a Democrat or it's a Republican, it does not matter. It will always be there because the way we Indians think is much different than how they think. And often I say that the beauty of the Hinduism or beauty of our dharma at times becomes our biggest enemy because our enemies are somewhere uh, enemies or the foes or the people who are not aligning to our thoughts are so indifferent to us. It's just a case like a goat and a lion drinking water on the same bank. It is not possible. Though they are doing their duty, this is the nature of a lion to be the way it should be. Again, lion is a very positive animal for us in Hinduism, but still I'm using it just to create some metaphor, just to create a case. So that parallels can never exist. So while in India we focus on doing the things very ethically at times, that things are very principled. Take the example of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. Like recently, this matter was brought in news where it said that in Karnataka he had come, he had ravaged the place, and Marathas destroys Karnataka. But what had happened that Shivaji had said to the Dutch that, boss, wind up your business of the slavery because it's no more the Muslim rule, it's my rule, and here everybody's free. And the sum of money what he got, he distributed equally among the people, among all of them. So this is the principle by which an Indian, you look at any Indian Raja, whether it's a Raja is from Bengal, whether he's from Assam, whether that Raja is from Kashmir, whether he's from Tamil Nadu or he's from Central India, whether he's from Madhya Bharat or he's from Gujarat, anywhere, they were all very principled. And this is the contrast which you will see in all the militias, as in, when I say militias, as in the foreigners. This is very, this was not the same. And this is why when the Greeks visited Bharat, now Greeks are the pagan people.
Hmm.
Okay, a lot of people tend to connect the pagans with Hindus, but pagans was necessarily a term which was used for the people who do not have an organized religion. That's how. So, but largely Hinduism was very much organized, irrespective of which sampradaya you pick. There was an organizational system. There's a diversity. It does not. If I respect everyone, it does not mean that I am not organized. So there was an organization system. Every sampradaya had its own ritual. Every sampradaya had its own tradition, which may be very different from the other sampradaya. But it does not mean that we were not organized. So it's, I see it as not very correct to call ourselves pagan. But now Greeks were the pagan, the polytheist also to some extent. But when they came to Bharat, they saw that Bharat is a very peculiar land where slavery does not exist. I'm not saying that it is a proof that slavery did not exist because it's a human nature. Maybe that somebody somewhere some slavery would have existed. We can't vouch for it, but surely it was way lesser than how it was very rampant in the Greek world. So when this polytheistic society, which is not from the dharmic land of Bharat, saw India to be peculiar, and still the Abrahamic faiths have not come. So it's more of a problem of non-Indic places that they had this problem and they saw India as much different. They could see this difference very much. They are the travelers who saw that the people don't close the door of their houses and they find it strange. because there would be no thief. Nobody is going to come and steal the things from you. So that's the reason why the West or the non-Indian places have always been the full of the propaganda, which often has been so elaborate. There's so much working on propaganda that somehow our dharmic ethos fades in front of it because we don't do propaganda as much. Again, propaganda is a very positive word. It's not negative. It necessarily, what I mean to say is that we are not somebody who push our knowledge, wisdom as much as the West try to do or non-Indian land tries to do. That's the reason why Marxism became so popular, and I became a victim to it. There are a lot of other people who become victim to it because it's so fascinating. The texts are put so well. So today, if you want to learn about communism, you have a book to pick. You have the Das Kapital. You have you. But if I uh, ask somebody that someone asked me that I want to become dharmic, so what I would do? I will first have a question mark in the mind. I can't straight away say that this is what it is. But there's a beauty too, because there's the thoughts of Swami Vivekananda, the thoughts of Aurobindo as a starter, there's the thoughts of Swami Dayanand Saraswati. Again, there's a lot of polemics against Swami Dayanand Saraswati too, but still, he also did something in his era and what he could do. So there have been many leaders. Then we can further go in the past. There's some more sannyasis. There have been work. There's the work of Adi Shankara. So this will come as a question mark in my mind that what text should I put it in, because it's so diverse, it is so deep, it's beautiful, but at the same time it becomes a roadblock. It becomes a problem too, and that's the reason why in a Bengal, because you come from Bengal, there's a lot of experiments which happen because there was a time when Hinduism was almost dead. It was a so everyone tried to revive Hinduism, whether it's a Brahmo Samaj, everybody was trying to do their own bit, whatever they could do. Now today we can find the fault lines in their activities, but we are not seeing it from their perspective or what exactly was happening there. So perhaps these are the challenges which have been seen in the past too. You saw like Brahmo Samaj and many other organizations coming up. They tried to solve the problem in a shortcut, but again, that was a faulty line. This was not very correct. But it's like a win-win situation for many times to the non-Western, non-Indians.
Okay, so last question from my end, then we'll go to audience questions. So, do you think, like, I have, like, in my little bit of understanding, correct? So, if I am a dharmic person, if I'm a dharmic society itself, I should be promoting. I know that dharma is a very good thing, correct? It promotes human prosperity. In that case, why dharmic societies are not as would say eager to promote dharma compared to other, I would say, cults who are promoting their own ideology in a massive way. So where is the philosophy or the problem lie that we are not doing what we should do to promote more dharma rather than like sit quiet and other people come and brainwash our kids and our generations.
It's a very good question, actually, because this is a problem. And see, I the one thing, the most aesthetic thing about the Hinduism is that it is evolving. It evolves. See, I am against the idea of reform because reform is something which you use for something which is deformed. But I am very much open to the idea that we evolve. Human beings evolve. Everything evolves. Likewise, because it's a nature's law, so Hinduism also evolved, and it does. So right now, the evolution, what is very much needed, is to talk about our dharma out there in open, and there are people who are doing it. Well, for example, I would like to take name of Ami Ganatra. What she is doing is fantastic because she has broken this whole thing of looking at hero as everyone as hero. Like today, Karna will become hero. Say the Ravan will become hero to somebody. So what she has done, she has gone to the roots of this character from the primary source and spoken about them as they are. Now there can be interpretation, but what the primary text talks about it, like what does Ramayan talks about Ravan, what Mahabharata talks about Karna, it is very essential to know, and that should be the bedrock. Because if you make everything so gray, so there will be no concept of if anything is good or bad. The postmodern idea that everything is fine, it's all the shades of gray. And the moment it comes to that, everything is a shades of gray. You fall in the trap that you will try to see that Burhan Wani was the son of a headmaster. It is very obvious to happen. If you are looking a hero even in Ravan, it may not be very different. You can pick any demon of today and just do some analysis for him that society which made him what he was not that bad. He also has a good side. So now on the dharmic side, a lot of things like that is happening. Like I spoke about Ami Ganatra. Then there's a fantastic works which are being done certainly through a lot of authors who do fiction writing. And I see fiction as a very essential source. I read a lot of fiction. People cannot gauge it when I what I write on my X, etc. But I'm a avid fiction reader. I like fantasy worlds. I like stories. I am a very itihasa wala person who likes the metaphors, and that can be seen in my recent writings too, where I have gone two step ahead. I've broken the rules. I've used metaphors. I try to make the things poetic, and because somehow I believe that itihasa, as how Kallan had defined, it's a method of telling the facts, but to give a upadesh, as in how to pursue the purusartha, the artha, kama, dharma, moksha. And it may alter the situation a bit, it may metaphorize it a bit, it may, so, but upadesh must pass on. So the our purpose of itihasa is different than history. History is exactly that, like me and you spoke today, exactly the MOM which comes out of it. That is the history. But itihasa would be that if me and you have to express separately, we'll sit together and say separately and say that this is how we converse. I will say a different version, you will say a different version. But what this StreamYard is going to do for us, if it does a transcript, it is going to give us a robotic MOM or that exactly history. So that difference comes, and somehow people are doing it. There are a lot of brilliant writers who have come out, and I won't deny there are a lot of BS also being peddled through the writing from our side, where you go to just just another extent. That also should not be done. But there are some brilliant minds who are propagating our dharma through the literature, and I see that this is a renaissance. Again, many people may find it offending that I'm using the term renaissance, but just as a metaphoric way, or for the lack of vocabulary, we are really going through a change.
Yeah, so I just want to actually share one thing. Let me just go here. So, like, we need a book like this, which needs to go mainstream, the Hindu
Yes.
Guide to Advocacy and Activism. So, and I picked up this book, but never seen this book being talked about and done. So, like, more people need to write this kind of book and read this kind of book, because, as Abbas sir mentioned, that like, we are not someone who would be doing propaganda blindly just to think I am right. Okay, but we have to believe in our dharma and propagate our dharma as something which is going to be a good to the whole humanity. So that's my last word, and now we'll go for the audience questions. There are very interesting questions which have been there. So, sir, for you, the first question comes from Shoptorsi. Why is there such a deliberate attempt to shield this dark history of supposed Palestinians by the West, especially in case that you are mentioned that okay, it was something they have done, but the West has deliberately done this, or is it that the so-called congregational political power which they hold, the Muslims hold in terms of democracy? So has the Islamists have hijacked democratic principles to actually get their own propaganda and make the system dance to their tune?
So see, of late, I don't write much on X these days, but I have written something on X, I think around a month ago or so. So this was about where I said, and because I was quite, I see a lot of pain when I see whether it's about what happens in uh, East Bengal, or what happens in, say, I use the term East Bengal. I don't use Bangladesh or East Pakistan. I always call it East Bengal. So, what happens in, say, Delhi very recently, or what is happening in Israel, the bomb attack happened, etc., etc. So then I got to a mind that then again going back to Christopher Hitchens, and Once there were two questions, two different events which was asked to him. So he wrote a book called Why God is Not Great. So, and that lecture was happening in Google headquarters. And he had gone on a book tour and he was talking about his book and the Google headquarters. And somebody asked him that, it was a Muslim, and he just asked that, have you written this book to offend me because we say Allahu Akbar? Now, you are, have you indirectly used the term indirectly? So Christopher Hitchens said that I will like to correct you. It's not indirect. I'm directly telling you that I'm trying to offend you. If you're not being offended, it's a problem. You must be offended. Now I'll give you second instance. Now Christopher Hitchens was asked about that. Okay, you are an atheist and you say that all the religions have problem because he has his own share of criticism for Hinduism. He criticized almost all the religions. There's no religion which was spread by Hitchens. He was not like new atheist of the time of now. He criticized all. So he said, then he was asked that why do you hate Islam the most? He said that because when religion takes the most violent form, it gives you Islam. So he's okay with all because they are not violent, but he's not okay with it because it becomes very violent. And he was very clear about it. Now, and there is a chapter like an kind of a thing which appears in the online notes, etc., where I detailed details about Islamofascism. It's a whole chapter dedicated to Islamofascism. And if one will scan the QR code which is there, and then they will go to that on my website, and there one chapter will appear which is about Islamofascism. There I start with talking about Hitchens that he says that I cannot breathe in the same air in which these pedophiles, the rapists, etc., breathe the same air. And the problem is that what democracy does to you is that because in the democratic setup, I'm not I'm not against democracy. I'm very pro democracy in general. I'm pro secularism too, the actual wala, whether there should be a separation. There should not be. I think that way. But when it comes to the democracy, it gives you a limitation that you are saying that everybody around you is the sheep. Okay, everyone, I, me, you, everybody is a sheep, and so sheep will always be tamed by the shepherd, and this is a democracy. This is what we believe that. But the problem is that whom you are looking at sheep is not a sheep, is some wolf. And now there comes a problem, because in the herd, if there is even a wolf, is going to kill the sheep. And what it does is that today, because of democratic setup, when the United Nations, if say 60 idiots come together out of 100 idiots to recognize the state of Palestine, you just can't do it because you will have to go ahead and recognize Palestine as a state. It is bound to happen. And because if a democracy is full of the idiots, you can't help it. And because any democratic setup is bound to get phases where there's the phases of a lot of idiots, a lot of intelligent people. Again, nothing against anybody, but this does happen because in a time of now, if somebody is looking to recognize Palestine after having faced so much, they are but the idiots. They are but the intelligent people. They are not intelligent for sure. So what democracy does to you is that it does not let you take a concrete action. Somebody, you are writing this question, Rishi, you have written this question, but maybe that while you have written this question, somebody, a close friend of you, finds it, he will say that what the hell you are talking? Palestinians are the humans as us. How can you say this? And what is the dark history? They are the freedom fighters. Didn't Bhagat Singh go to the battle against the British? All those obnoxious things will come to you. So somehow uh, these idiotic point of views do come up, and these are small corners which we're talking about. Imagine it as a larger sector where geopolitics is involved. There's a politics of the oil, there's a politics of the currency, there's a politics of many other things, and then of course there is a idioticity which exists. People are idiots for sure. Then how can you expect that those tales will come out when by appeasing the Muslim world, the West can do a lot to because it's also about the oil. Please understand. Today we may not get a lot of time to discuss about this. The whole politics about the oil which drives a lot of things. So all these things which you see these idiot people doing, whom I call idiot, they're actually not idiot because They have a larger vision there, but that is destabilizing the whole global system. Today, the whole world needs to come out together, talk about this Palestinian problem, talk that why they were not tried as a war criminals, say very clearly that hey, you are talking about that Israel is doing the genocide, but had Israel wanted to do the genocide, they could have done it one afternoon. This is the potential of Israel as a country. That's the state of Israel. It's the Israel which has given them the maximum employment. Why no Arab country is giving them the employment? Why it's only, and so damning it is that Israel gave them employment, and whom they gave the employment, they are the people who gave the intel and October 7 happened. And so that is it. Of course, there is a global geopolitics which plays a role, and of course there is a centrum of Muslim appeasement which makes us do it for sure. And you would have your own friends around. Why go so far? Of course, we need to go far when we're talking in geopolitical sense. But if you look in a close boundary, we all have such gems around us.
Yeah, so we have one more question from Moina Gupta. So, what were the similarities or differences between the influences of Grand Mufti of Palestine and the Dietrich Eckart on Hitler for the final solution?
So it's the one thing was very it's very tough to say that see, final solution was always something which was spoken about. Final solution, as I said, that if you look at the theological book of Islam, you have a subscription because the judgment day will come, and when the judgment day comes, you have to. That's the final solution they are looking for, because on the judgment day, even the stones will say that there's a Jew behind
Jews,
me.
trees,
They,
trees, are the trees. Trees will shout that there is a Jew hiding behind me. Trees as well.
yes,
Trees
yeah,
and stones.
tree and stone, both will say that
Hmm.
there's a Jew hiding behind me, so come
Hmm.
and kill him. And until this you kill the Jews, the final solution is never going to come. So this is quite very clear. So what does this mean? This also means the final solution. Now this is where the Grand Mufti was coming from. Grand Mufti's idea, and today also when you look at the Hamas Charter, whether it is a charter of 2017 or the charter of 1988, you see that they're talking about the land will be Sharia compliant, it will be a work where there will be no place for the Jews. It is very clear. And they talk about the judgment day very clearly. And the charter, as in the constitution which runs the Palestine today, it talks about it that the judgment day will come. Imagine that you talk about your constitution in India has the thing like a pralay will happen and this is supposed to happen, and you talk about it, and you need to kill, do something for the Malechas, etc. It becomes a part. So what is going to world going to react at? So now again, they're those kind of metaphorical, but they literally mean it. It's very literal meaning. So of course, when Dietrich Eckart's views were something which were picked by Hitler, he was something. He is way before Hitler, and it is considered that even before him, the idea of the final solution existed. It's not that he brought it across, and the Russians were very much talking about it. It was very much in discussion, etc. And so, in fact, it was his views which led to the creation of the philosophies of the Nazis to a great extent. And it is, in fact, Hitler went on to say that he's like a spiritual co-founder of Nazism. That was a kind of respect what Hitler had. By then, Grand Mufti is not at all in picture with Hitler. He's not there in the picture, and because he has passed away in 1923, and in 1921, 1922, he has become the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, with the post which has been created by the British themselves. So Hitler was already aware about the thing called final solution, as I was saying in the initial remark. What Grand Mufti did is that he brought the theological angle, which is about the Islam, and for us it is very important, as in for us, as in the Muslims of the Arab world. And he gave the inspiration because Islam looked like a religion which is man and religion, the religions of men, which is promising the fruits in the paradise and the rivers of wine, etc. And this is something which Dietrich Eckart had nothing to offer to Hitler. It was just that a philosophy, that a racial supremacy, etc., is there, but theological base was not existing.
Yeah, so we have one more interesting question on the book itself. So, quantum politics asks, we know from Abbas's thesis how Hitler and Palestinian Arabs colluded, but didn't Churchill, France, Renault, Spain, Franco bear hatred for Jews? Did Abbas record any such thing in this book? Like inherent, what we called like Jew hatred was already present in all these regions, and it's something which is recorded as well in your book as well.
Uh,
Let's talk about.
so I partially talk about Churchill, but
Mm-hmm.
not about the Spain and I'm not because this book is entirely focused on the Nazis and the Palestine. It was more about because the British did not make a collision with the Muslims to that extent, nor did the Spanish, nor did the French. Of course, they supported them. They're supporting them still, but they never had the alliance as strong of an alliance what the Nazis could make with the Islamists, and that's why this term Islamofascism exists. So when you add Islam and the fascism, you get Islamofascism, and that idea is very much germination of a collision between the Nazis and the Islamists. So it does not find the place in my book. Just a little about Churchill because he was very much involved when the things about the mandatory Palestine etc. were going on. So some things are recorded, but not to that extent as it should have been because that's not the subject in this book.
Yeah, we have a very interesting question. Can we kindly ask author to speak about Johann von Lees? I think he was like anti-Semite. But like, do you know anything about it? Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes. So again, I'm aware about it, but that again does not find a place in this book or thesis because these are the things which are already known. These were like if you look for any Holocaust literature, you will find the germination of ideas, etc. These things will find the place. But when it comes to, like I said, that the Palestinian leaders were never tried as a war criminals. My whole thesis or the intent of writing this book was that at least the world now recognizes that Palestine was a war criminal. As in, if you see that very land as a Palestine, if you call it today, the Palestinian leaders like Grand Mufti, etc., were the war criminals, and so that's has been the major subject.
Understood. So you can like grab a glass of water if you want because I think
No, that's okay.
because yeah. So so Moinagda asks, was Muslim League National Guards modeled after uh,
Yes,
Stromblung of Nazi Party?
yes, yes.
Yeah. So the answer is absolutely yes. Okay. Okay. This is current politics, but quite interesting. Do you think Indian community in the West is the next Jews of Germany? Both are rich communities, lack unity and street power, and both cases have similarity in terms of rising hatred to exile. The way we've seen Indian community being targeted in Australia, New Zealand, and also in America as well.
So I have a slightly nuanced view on this,
Hmm.
and it comes this way that once it was asked to me that you know are the Hindus the new Jews? So then I replied that Hindus' condition was worse than the Jews. It happened. It was there, and because from 1000 CE to 1500 CE, we lost around 84 million people in Hindustan. So 84 million is a huge number for 5 centuries. It means that in every century, around 16 million people are vanishing, either dead, taken as sex slave, or whatever, which is a huge number. So, and back then the population was not so huge, and that's the reason why our human capital also shrunk a lot, and we did not could not push for industrialization and etc. Many factors, of course, there were Timurid Mughal empire which was making an impact. They had everything to do but to do the progress. They had nothing for the progress. That was the thing. But apart from that, also it affected us badly. Now, as far as the current situation is concerned, having read about the situation, the Jews, I won't say that it is that bad, because if I agree to this just because I am a Hindu and say that I feel the pain, whatever happens there, and of course an Indian will never make a headline while some Westerner will make a headline. So that's for sure. But it does not mean that the situation is as bad as of the Jews. It was horrific. Like you, I will surely recommend few movies for the people to watch, if not books. It's a Pianist is a film, and then the Schindler List, which you must watch, and it will give you the glimpse of, so what you can relate that to is the life which we're living under the Muslim rule, the rule of Indians in the time of Shah Jahan, Jahangir, or say Aurangzeb. You can get the semblance of it from what is shown in the film. Like you will be forced to work in the factories. You will be forced to work. If you are not fit enough, you will be killed. Because if you are if you are no of no worth, then why you should live? Why you should take the resources? You will be thrown out of your house and made to live in the ghettos. Exactly, like these are the things which is non-comparable. We just can't compare it. If we do it, then it will be injustice to even our own bad past, which we have lived through, as in our ancestors, and whether they paid jizya or they fought enough and whatever. But it was really a very horrific time.
We have one more question from Moina, and we'll take two, three more questions, and we'll wind up. Okay. So, was Hitler the only one in contact with the Palestinian clergy, or was his inner circle of Göring, Himmler, and
Yes,
Goebbels, Bergman
yes,
were
yes,
also there?
yes, yes. Because Grand Mufti, the affidavit which proves that Grand Mufti had the role in Holocaust, that affidavit talks about he was in touch with Himmler and Eichmann, and they were planning for the Holocaust together. And he was in touch with the Goebbels. He was the Palestinian leaders were in touch in the Bormann too. So they were very much in close communication. That's why I said that people will give you the minutes of meeting between Hitler and Grand Mufti, that where it's being discussed, what they are talking. There is no such thing. But he will not discuss it with Hitler. He will talk with the people who are the executives who are going to do it, and these are the executive people. And he was constantly in touch with them, and there's a lot of exchange of telegrams, etc., between the people, that how they need to appease the Arab world, as in between Himmler and Goebbels, etc. So you see, and those things have been recorded in my book, where I have given the case that where somebody is agreeing that we should go full throttle to appease the Muslim world. Someone has a different opinion. This is not the right time, etc. And then they get into a touch, and everybody has a different approach to deal with the Palestinian leaders. So it was very much there.
Yes, this is interesting question. The rhetoric of Grand Mufti being so virulent and even more vicious than painter party. Do we see a similarity of Mufti with Periyar, the Periyar on the Uttarakhand movement, where the anti-Brahmin agenda was, I think, not as much, but it was really virulent. Okay, or the Justice Party, since they were all like fans. So, do you see the Periyarism that we saw in 1900s, where the Brahmin hatred was akin, not exactly, but akin to Jewish hatred for by the Nazis?
Yes, that is something which you can compare for sure, because I've read about Periyar. I have my own homework on it, and
Hmm.
I can vouch for it that what he was bringing upon the Brahmins was no different than what was happening to the Jews. It's just that because our state machinery was, because it was a state machinery which was doing exactly against the Jews what they did. Here, it was not the state machinery; it was a political party, the Justice Party, which did the anti-Brahmin acts, which was of similar nature as what was done against the Jews, and there is not much difference. So that's why the situation was better, but his plans were worse.
The last question we will take for today is something which is controversial, but anyway, let's just take it. So, quantum politics asks, when the Jews started to flee Europe, EU, they went to UK and then to US. Why didn't they go east and take refuge in Russia? Was it due to their theological hatred towards this
Yes,
Orthodox Church?
yes. because they were being persecuted in Russia too. So in fact, after the fall of the Russian Revolution 1905, a lot of anti-Semitic thing began to happen, and that's when they began to migrate, and that's when the Jainism caught a lot more fire. It was the problem in the Russia which paved the larger way for the Jainism than anywhere else. Of course, it was existing in UK, US also. It's not that it was not there, but it was much more easier life in UK, United States of America, and but there came a time when United States of America, UK, etc. also closed the doors for them. It did happen, and the only place where they could go to was the Palestine. And of course, Palestine had its own memory because घर का भूला शाम हमेशा घर को ही वापस आता है. So, like whether it's about the Parsis or they came to Hindustan and Gujarat and Sanjan. So this is very true. And what you have said today that it is due to the theological hatred. So now, whatsoever I can agree, I can vouch for one thing that whatsoever it may happen, Russia may go against United States like anything, but it will never go against Israel because, and in fact, Putin himself answered it that why he will never go against. So this what you have stated here is start of answering to the question that why many people have a doubt that whether Russia will go against the Israel or not. It will never happen. Like the three people are going to remain the friends forever. It's Israel, India, and Russia. It's never going to change whatsoever may happen. And there's a lot of people who are anti-Israel in India. They keep writing about it. But the interesting thing is that even though India has not recognized Israel completely, and Israel's ally was United States of America, but in 1971 war, America was ally of Pakistan. Very much they were giving the full support, and they were almost about to attack. But Israel stood with India. Now India has not recognized it fully, but Israel stood with India. What Israel has got to do? In Kargil war again, Israel stood with India very clearly. In Operation Sindhu, the first country to acknowledge, irrespective of USA standing with the Pakistan, it was the Israel which came up in support. So this and it also applies to the Russia that Russia will never go against Israel whatsoever it may happen. And the second part of your question leads to that it can be a starting point to understand the relationship between Russia and Israel.
Okay, the last question for the day, that is, thank you, not this one. Uh, where is the last question gone from Moinabda? Okay, this one. Do you think that the documentary series Hitler's Circle of Evil is authentic?
To some extent, for sure. I said to some extent because there is always a bit of dilution. I have found a bit of dilution, but it's to extent true as well.
Okay, so thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for coming to the podcast and sharing your valuable thoughts. I'm going to actually repackage this live stream into a video, and I'm going to put everything, also including the QR code where you get in the stream itself, so that people can actually access it. So again, thank you for your time. I think we will be back for our next podcast on the Babar book, which probably will happen maybe after 1 or 2 weeks. So thank you, sir, again. Jai Shri Ram, Vande Mataram.
Vande Mataram.